Welcome to World Code Updates, your daily briefing on everything happening around the world. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. Breaking news: U.S. Navy warships are steaming toward the South China Sea, marking a significant escalation in the region's ongoing tensions. This urgent deployment comes in the wake of a dramatic collision between Chinese vessels near the highly contested Scarborough Shoal, an incident that has sent shockwaves through the international community. Tensions are soaring as the Pentagon issues a stern warning, cautioning all parties against reckless actions that could spiral out of control and threaten regional stability. In a high-speed maritime chase, two Chinese Coast Guard ships collided while pursuing a Philippine Coast Guard vessel, just miles from the disputed shoal, an event that underscores the volatility of these waters. The world is watching closely as chaos erupts in one of the globe's most volatile and strategically vital regions, where any miscalculation could have far-reaching consequences. The Philippine ship, BRP Tarlac, managed a narrow escape as the Chinese vessels became entangled, a failed act of intimidation that only heightened the stakes. Beijing's message remains unmistakably clear. These are their waters, and they are prepared to enforce their claim at any cost, using both diplomatic and military means. In Washington, the response is swift and decisive, with top officials convening urgent meetings to assess the rapidly evolving situation. The Pentagon has deployed two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, USS John Finn and USS Higgins, to conduct freedom of navigation operations near Scarborough Shoal, sending a powerful signal to both allies and adversaries. This move is a direct challenge to China's sweeping maritime claims and a visible show of support for the Philippines, America's oldest ally in the region. The warships, bristling with advanced weaponry and state-of-the-art defense systems, head toward a potential flashpoint, prepared for any contingency. The world braces for a high-stakes naval standoff, as military analysts warn that even a minor incident could trigger a much larger conflict. The U.S. move is a calculated risk, aimed at deterring Chinese aggression while upholding international law and the principle of free navigation in international waters. But this bold action puts American sailors directly in the path of an increasingly assertive and unpredictable Chinese military presence. As the destroyers close in on Scarborough Shoal, the question is not if, but when, they'll encounter the People's Liberation Army Navy, raising the risk of direct confrontation. The stage is set for a tense and potentially historic encounter, one with global consequences that could reshape the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. Around the world, anxious eyes are glued to the unfolding crisis, as the next moves by Washington, Beijing, and Manila could determine the future of the South China Sea. The crisis began on August 18, 2025, as the Philippine Coast Guard's BRP Tarlac patrolled near Scarborough Shoal to resupply local fishermen. The area lies within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, but China maintains a constant, aggressive presence. As the Tarlac neared the shoal, it was intercepted and swarmed by larger Chinese Coast Guard vessels. The Chinese ships executed dangerous maneuvers, attempting to force the Tarlac off course. The captain of the Tarlac held steady, reporting the harassment to Manila. Suddenly, two Chinese ships broke formation, accelerating to block the Tarlac's path. In the chaos, they collided violently, leaving the Philippine vessel to escape. The incident was caught on video, sparking outrage in the Philippines and concern worldwide. The footage highlighted the recklessness of Chinese tactics and the ever-present risk of miscalculation. What began as a routine patrol nearly became a deadly international incident. News of the collision reached U.S. Indo-Pacific Command in Hawaii within minutes, setting off a chain of rapid responses and strategic discussions. This was more than routine harassment, it was a dangerous escalation that could not be ignored. The U.S. has a vital interest in ensuring freedom of navigation and upholding the rules-based order at sea, which is crucial for global trade and security. The decision to deploy the USS John Finn and USS Higgins was made swiftly, reflecting the urgency of the situation. Their mission, a freedom of navigation operation, was to sail within 12 nautical miles of Scarborough Shoal, directly challenging China's expansive maritime claims. This physical demonstration signals that the U.S. does not recognize China's attempt to control international waters, asserting international law. The destroyers, armed with advanced weaponry, serve as a deterrent, showcasing the U.S. military's readiness and capability. The Pentagon hopes their presence will compel China to de-escalate and reconsider its aggressive posturing. The U.S. is not seeking conflict, but will not be intimidated by aggressive maneuvers. The deployment reassures the Philippines, America's oldest treaty ally in Asia, that U.S. commitments are real and steadfast. It's a tangible show of support and a signal that the U.S. stands with the Philippines, reinforcing regional stability. The American response upholds global principles and reinforces a critical alliance, emphasizing the importance of unity. The world watches closely as the U.S. draws a line in the water, marking a pivotal moment in international maritime relations. Scarborough Shoal is more than rocks. It's a symbol of national pride and a strategic flashpoint. For the Philippines, it's a traditional fishing ground within their exclusive economic zone, backed by international law, and a 2016 tribunal ruling. For China, it's Huangyan Dao, a key part of its sweeping 9-line claim. Since 2012, China has maintained control, blocking Filipino fishermen and ignoring international rulings. The shoal's location is critical. A Chinese military outpost here would give Beijing dominance over the South China Sea. The waters are rich in fish and possibly oil and gas, making the dispute about both sovereignty and resources. The latest collision is just one flare-up in a conflict where history, law, and power collide. At the heart of the U.S. response is the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty with the Philippines, a cornerstone of their long-standing alliance. This treaty has been a pivotal element in maintaining regional stability and ensuring mutual defense. Recent U.S. administrations have clarified that an armed attack on Philippine forces in the South China Sea would trigger U.S. commitments under this treaty. This assurance is crucial for the Philippines, which faces increasing maritime challenges. The collision raised a chilling question: what if a Chinese ship had struck the BRP Tarlac? Such an event could escalate tensions dramatically. Such an incident could have invoked the treaty, forcing the U.S. into a direct confrontation with China, a scenario both nations wish to avoid. The line between harassment and armed attack is dangerously thin, and any miscalculation could lead to unintended consequences. The Philippines relies heavily on the U.S. for deterrence, while the U.S. must carefully navigate its commitments to avoid being dragged into a war over a disputed shoal. Deploying the USS John Finn and USS Higgins demonstrates resolve without committing to immediate military action, showcasing a strategic balance. China tests the treaty's limits, using Coast Guard and militia vessels to create ambiguity and challenge the alliance's strength. The U.S. has clarified that attacks on Philippine public vessels, even by non-military Chinese ships, could trigger the treaty, reinforcing their commitment. China's strategy is a dangerous gamble, probing for weaknesses in the alliance, testing the resolve of both the U.S. and the Philippines. The stakes for both nations and the region are immense, with potential impacts on global security and economic stability. After the U.S. warships deployed, diplomatic rhetoric intensified. The Pentagon declared unwavering support for the Philippines and condemned China's dangerous and unlawful actions. The U.S. vowed to uphold freedom of navigation and its defense commitments. In Beijing, officials condemned the U.S. deployment as provocative interference. China insisted Scarborough Shoal is its territory and accused the U.S. of destabilizing the region. The Chinese Ministry of Defense warned the U.S. Navy to stay away, vowing to defend national sovereignty. Both sides traded accusations, each blaming the other for escalating tensions. The U.S. sees itself as the guarantor of a rules-based order. China views the U.S. as an outside power seeking to contain its rise. This fundamental disagreement makes the standoff so dangerous. The war of words reflects a deeper strategic rivalry. Neither side is willing to back down. The world watches as the two superpowers dig in. The risk of miscalculation grows with every statement. China's shadowy maritime militia, the People's Armed Forces Maritime Militia, plays a key role in the South China Sea. These are not ordinary fishing boats. They're reinforced, well-equipped, and operate alongside the Chinese Coast Guard and Navy. In the Scarborough Shoal incident, militia vessels swarmed the BRP Tarlac, blurring the line between civilian and military. When U.S. destroyers arrived, they too were shadowed and harassed by these militia boats. This gray zone tactic provides China with plausible deniability and complicates U.S. responses. The militia's presence challenges international norms and increases the risk of miscalculation. The U.S. and allies have begun exposing these vessels' links to the Chinese state. China's use of all elements, military, Coast Guard, and militia, signals its determination to defend its claims. The standoff at Scarborough Shoal is as much about unconventional tactics as open confrontation. Scarborough Shoal is now a tinderbox, with U.S. and Chinese forces operating dangerously close. A single error or aggressive move could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction. The earlier Chinese collision was a warning. Things can go wrong fast, even among allies. The risk is even greater between rival superpowers. Chinese jets and ships have repeatedly engaged in unsafe maneuvers against US forces. Each incident raises the risk of a deadly miscalculation. Crisis communication channels are unreliable, making de-escalation difficult. The greatest danger is that one side misreads the other's intentions. Both sides believe they're acting within limits, but a single mistake could spark conflict. The region's stability hangs by a thread. The Scarborough Shoal standoff is not just a US-China issue, it's a global concern. The South China Sea is a vital artery for global trade, with 1/3 of maritime commerce passing through. Any conflict here would disrupt supply chains and impact economies worldwide. US allies like Australia, Japan, and European powers have called for restraint and respect for international law. The dispute is a test for the future of the international order. Will rules prevail, or will might make right? If China succeeds in defying international law, it sets a dangerous precedent. For the US, credibility as a global leader is on the line. Failure to act decisively could embolden China and shake allies' confidence. The deployment of US warships is about more than territory. It's about defending principles and shaping the future. The world is watching, and the stakes could not be higher.